this computer. If anybody wants to put their camera on mute because we're going to be recording for a second, now is the warning for that. But for the most part, it's all going to be all Tom. So cool. Take it away, Tom. Oh, Tom, sorry, you're muted. There
There
you go.
we
Perfect.
go. I'm no longer muted. Yes. Perfect. All right. As Brandon was mentioning, I'm Tom Mahle. I'm a senior engineer at Shipped. I'm here to talk about Git as a dynamic data store. I've got even my subtitle, like I'm leading right off with it here. I don't know exactly how I feel about this talk. If you have complex feelings about it as well, that's okay. Went with the subtitle of how to stop writing servers and why you might not want to. Like I'm totally torn. There's like one version of this talk where I could be quoting like Douglas Hofstadter and like Alan Turing in his original like machine, a Turing machine paper. This isn't that version of the talk. This is the version of the talk where I show you guys something that I built after seeing a comment on Hacker News. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. So there's a thing called isomorphic Git. And it's not particularly complicated or revolutionary. It's just a node package that lets you interact with Git repositories. It's honestly something that you would like expect to exist after you know what all already has an npm package out there. It's not a big deal. Except like there's one thing that's kind of weird about it though, which is that browsers can run JavaScript, and websites can be hosted on Git repositories, which someone had an idea, and it wasn't me, but I have a demo of this person's idea here. So right here, I have what I call baby's first React app. If you're not like familiar with React, that is okay. It's not like a prerequisite for this talk or anything. But like every time you're learning a framework, you end up with something that I think looks a little bit like this. We've got a JSON file, and our goal is just to put this JSON file onto the screen in a kind of pretty way. And then employers will think that we could, like, if that was talking to an API instead, like we've demonstrated some level of capability of putting data onto a screen, right? And that's what I've got here. So we've just got a little React component here, and we're rendering a class name. It's got some CSS attached to it, rendering a div rather, with some CSS. And then we just go ahead and we just straight up like map through the blog posts that we have. They have a title and a body and an index, and we're going to go ahead and just render those onto the screen. So I can show you that, which is right here. That's what that looks like. That's all. I've just got like my blog posts have a little title. They have a little a little content there, and we're looking at like a very normal blog. But like unless you had a server and a database, there's no way that like this is a useful blog, because this just has to be hard coded, right? Or like there's some CMS front end somewhere. Like either we've outsourced the server and database work to can't think of an example of a CMS at the moment, of course, because I'm giving a talk, but any number of the possibilities out there, or you built a server and a database, or this is totally static, right? This is kind of the other way, which is the thing that's not baby's first React project here. And I wrote it so I can refer to it that way. I've never referred to one of your projects as baby's first React project, only my own. Is this maybe admin thing here, which is separated out into its own component. One of the beautiful things about React is you can separate things out into their own composable components here. And here we've got like baby's second React app, which is we just go ahead and look like, do we have the word admin in our address bar? If we don't, we just bail out of here. We're done. We don't show admin stuff unless admin is in the URL. And then if we do, we've got like a little on-change maker here because we're going to make a few of them. And we'll go ahead and let a user input a title and a body and a GitHub username and GitHub password. And you might you might be starting to piece together where this is going now. The upshot of here is, I'll just go ahead and show it, right? So I can go ahead and add, well, actually, let's go ahead and that's the reveal for later. So we'll go ahead and just quit the yarn start that I had already run and then run it again and see if this goes ahead and takes me straight there. Perfect. Upload 3000 and then question mark admin. Nice, cool. We've got like a little title and a body here. So we'll go ahead and just make local test planet locally. Yes, there we go. The usage of this alert is an excellent example of state-of-the-art web design. You see these all over the place. Google loves alerts. And hopefully, as I foretold, hopefully I understand my own website. Nothing has changed here, right? But if we then pop over to our Git history and pull down, we can see that I actually hammered on the button. So there's like 3 commits here. But just one shows up because Git's smart about stuff. And then if we pop over to, normally there's like a lot more conversation that happens between these, but okay, yeah, that looks like 7:15 p.m. So this one's already published. If we refresh tommahle.com, we can see that that test blog post is published here. And we can also see that we can make a test from prod, little blog post at the planet there. Yeah. And then now we can pop over here and watch Netlify do its little magic of building, and usually goes pretty darn quick here because the app is so small, right? Like it doesn't take too long to rebuild this thing. Netlify is neat. So again, normally I would be talking through this, not making you just watch the Netlify build happen. But Netlify is neat. All right, build script success. Go back to here. That one is published. Refresh here. Test from prod worked. Yay! Still feels like it shouldn't. Just shouldn't work. So let's go ahead and take a look at that submit button. That's obviously doing something a little bit tricky. And the little bit tricky thing that it's doing is pulling in Isomorphic Git, what I promised you this talk would be about, and an implementation of just an HTTP client and an implementation of a file system. These are both just recommended in the Isomorphic Git docs. So basically, this is actually baby, in this case, I am baby. I have not advanced beyond this at all whatsoever. Baby's first Isomorphic Git usage. Just copy paste it out of their tutorial, right? Which is that you can clone a repository, and then after you clone the repository, you can go ahead and put a button on the screen and let people click it. And when you click it, we go ahead and add something to a Git commit and commit it with new blog post at a given time. GitHub still lets you just put whatever email or name you want it for an author in here. So I go ahead and separate stuff out into admin. And then you push it. And this is the only thing here that actually needs the pass pushing to the Git repository. You have to have permission there. And then we show an alert, which is an excellent example of state-of-the-art web design, of course. So that's a little bit weird. This is actually, so the change that it's making here, I kind of glossed over it, is that it's writing to its own blogs.json file. So, the baby's first React app version of this would be to, just come in here and you're like, okay, does this actually work? Did I secretly somehow hard code this somewhere into the app? And, the answer is no. Anything that shows up here will show up on the screen. And we can prove that one. That one will actually work even without my GitHub password, right? So same thing. If you, the reason why nothing would have happened before is because the submit button would have only submitted a push to the Git repository, would have pushed a new commit. We wouldn't have it locally. We would just need to pull it, and then it would show up here. So that is demo number 1, based around, there's a thing called Isomorphic Git, and there's also a thing called Netlify. This is where like this could actually become useful, and this is where maybe if you are like a contractor, if you make some like basic blog things for people, this is where this maybe your ears should actually perk up, because Netlify will respond to changes that you push to your Git repository, and it'll respond to it kind of however you want, but usually by building your app and pushing changes out to web hosting. This is actually live. I do need to escape from here. On tommahle.com. So here is tommahle.com. It's the same thing. If we go to !admin, and in a world where I remembered my GitHub password, and in this case, you'll have to take my word for it, or maybe I'll go figure out what's happening when I'm off camera and circle back after someone does a show and tell in order to like do this. Clicking submit here would actually kick off a new build over in our Netlify that deploys to tommahle.com. And within 30 seconds, a minute, what have you, that actually will propagate out to tommahle.com for everyone on the internet. So this is an actual way to make a single admin blog without ever standing up a server or a database, which is pretty cool because we're JavaScript developers. We'd rather not stand up a server or a database if we can avoid it. The presentation mode for prettiness. So that's more or less the demo. The reason why I say like this could be a version that like Hofstadter or Turing gets quoted in is because we've got this very strange loop where we're writing to our own repository, and I don't know what's useful about it, but I think someone's going to figure that out, and it's going to be really, really cool when someone does. So that's like why I'm giving the talk. I think for sure you can do a version that's contract work. If you got a small number of admins, heck, just stand up a GitHub repository, give them write access to it, and have them put in their GitHub username and password. You don't need to build a login page. You don't need to build a server. You don't need to build a database. And as long as you're not going to run into like concurrency issues or like a really large admin base, kind of work. If your client knows HTML, there's like questionable utility to this at all. They could have built their own, but they could make even prettier blog posts, certainly. But perhaps like quick prototyping, you could make a personal blog, put it out there with like first name, last name.com. I don't know if there's employability concerns about that. I haven't run into it yet, but it is the hackiest thing that I've ever put my name on. Someone else threw out the idea of, maybe you have a technical wiki. This is like a reasonable way to have developers contribute to a wiki without having to actually pull down the Git repository, things like that. I usually have another slide that's like, is this useful at big corp, Shipt, Target, whatever? And like the answer there is it's scary, man. I don't know. Like, I'm not sure yet, but maybe someone has an idea out there because I don't know, maybe you marry this up with machine learning in JavaScript or something like that. I don't know. It could do something cool, I feel. So the last real slide here is the person that I stole this all shamelessly from, which is the user on Hacker News, Sammy, the dev, the myth, the legend, who all of this is just straight up like Isomorphic Git hits 1.0 and this guy's like ready in the comments section, or girl is ready in the comments section with like, oh yeah, I use this way, and blows everyone's mind. It's like at the top of the thread, even though it's a really weird use case, but it's just so cool. Yeah, so I saw this and actually was just so motivated by like, that's weird, that shouldn't work. Where does this break? Where does this stop working? That I went and worked on it. It turns out it stops working when you forget your GitHub password. Some links, that post on Hacker News. You can fork this off of my GitHub if you want and try it yourself. You can email me, tommahle@gmail.com, or you can view my amazing blog, which is readable, beautifully designed, and has complete nonsense comments, because all that I ever use it for is demoing this. Thank you all. And if you've got any questions, I have all the time in the world.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. This was awesome. I remember when you showed me this at work on a call once, and I was just like, dude, this is so cool. Definitely appreciate you sharing this with everybody. Any questions?
Can we scale this up to use like a GitHub app, so we're not entering like our GitHub credentials on a third-party domain? Like, can it scale up to that? I guess that makes it a little more difficult, but I don't know.
Oh yeah, like
I guess it's
I'm sure that there's a version of this that uses the single sign-on flow for GitHub. Yeah, that's probably not even super hard to build, I would guess. Or certainly you could use a personal access token, anything like that.
Yeah.
So you could at least revoke it from the third-party website if you ran into troubles, which is not quite as good.
Revoke it after you publish the demo on YouTube and things. Yeah.
Exactly.
I didn't even think about that. And I just gave you my password, so I should probably reset that.
But that's
or you can read the source code and you'll see that I don't scrape it or anything.
Yes, the best part is not going anywhere, right? It just it's direct from browser to GitHub. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something here.
I don't want to build. Sorry, I don't want to build a server to scrape that into, right? Like that was the whole point. Sorry, Tom, I cut you off.
So I'm trying to think. There seems like there's something here that was really. So if I'm thinking of like a typical server, like let's go to WAMP stack because it's. Everybody probably knows what that is. You've got your OS, you've got your Apache, or whichever your actual server is running on it. You've got the database, then you've got your whole CMS part. Right? What does the P stand for in WAMP? PHP, your language, your logic. So WAMP is like the tried and true thing. And then like, but what I want to use is JavaScript, right? So, and then with JavaScript, you use Node, but then you still have to have a database. What I'm wondering is if you do what you're doing here, could you just use Git as your database and then just have the server and the code, and then the database is Git, and then you wouldn't need an actual database? Like, does this eliminate the database from the stack in a small use case? I think that's maybe what it could do. So this is me thinking out loud.
Use case, yeah. So yeah, like the thing that this like the version that I just demoed, the thing that it 100% lacks that's critical for any serious production system is server-side validation. There's no server, you can't do server-side validation.
No, right? There's no server-side validation. It's true.
Yeah. So you're definitely right that like, yeah, you could still build a server and you can build that server in Node, and you could also not build a database. And what that server could do is have a connection to the GitHub repository that hosts all of it and write to it, right? So then now you don't have to dole that out to your users.
So this is super cool.
Thank you.
There's also a way that, okay, so I use Docusaurus to stand up a docs engine. I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but Docusaurus is from Facebook, and it essentially lets you use Markdown and generates a static site from it. And so this site, docs.branchapp.com, is hosted on Branch's GitHub, company that I work for. And I've taught the product managers to just go into GitHub and edit the Markdown files in there. And then whenever they make a push, it'll actually recompile the app. And so they can treat GitHub like a CMS.
Yeah, GitHub is the CMS. Great, so much better than WordPress.
And yeah, so with this, you can cut out the part where you actually have to teach them to find the right file in GitHub and commit to it. You can just tell them to add !admin or what have you.
Yeah. Or you could have like different input fields that like resolve to different
JSON attributes. Yeah, that's cool.
There's like you can actually I don't remember exactly what the tag is or whatever, but like most, if not all, HTML tags have an editable version of them. I've seen this where like it's just a web page, but everything you can highlight and like change the text on.
Content
And
editable.
of course, it just content editable. Yeah. So that would be the really bonkers version, is just like render things with that when the question mark admin gets added on, and okay, now it's just a weirdly editable web page. I don't know if it would be an intuitive user experience for anybody, but that'd be cool.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely sounds like a really cool experiment. So awesome. Thanks again, Tom.